It's interesting how in today's modern political climate in the United States, I think our generation, Gen Z, is becoming the most politically charged of any uh, generation ever. I think, and like the wrong ways as well. I think they're being so like people aren't really central. Like they're not really. There's no centrists anymore. You're either one thing or you're another. There's no balance. I feel like people who claim to be centrists and have ideas that are more conservative while also being liberal will be chastised by liberals for being conservatives because in any aspect, because the fact of the matter is um, I think the political climate for liberals and just the left as a whole is very just it's almost like the crucible, you know, where they're so quick to accuse and chastise and ostracize people for even the smallest of things. So say if somebody has mostly liberal views but is like it could be like even the smallest thing as in like being Christian, you know? Like that's something that might be considered conservative, honestly. But like not religiously, like policy wise. If you're an individual with mostly liberal views, but you, for example, are pro life, that could be enough for you not to even be considered a leftist by leftists, and would be enough to have you be driven out of like the circles of influence of certain leftists. Um, I think it might be it is pretty similar with people who are right wingers, but I think it's a little bit more. I mean, liberals and their wokeisms and the radical left, as is so often driven home through the skull of people by, Republicans who are trying to deface the left. But there is, like, some truth to it, But also at the same time, I feel like it might be because people who are right wingers aren't liberal by any means. I think a lot of right wingers are kind of solidified into this what? It's kind of narrow path where if you're conservative, you're just conservative all the way, pretty much all the time. Um, and otherwise, you're just considered liberal. Why are you considered a leftist? No, not necessarily. Because yeah, I feel like once you describe yourself as a right winger, there's a difference between being a conservative and a right winger. I think, at least, there's just different connotations. I feel like being a right wing is kind of more inherently tied to MAGA, I feel like. Whereas conservatives aren't really necessarily. Because, I mean, conservatives vote for. This is the thing, right? Conservatives want to vote for people like Donald Trump because he protects their values as a Republican. They vote for him. It's kind of like party line. I think conservatives support Trump not because they agree with him, but just solely because he's a Republican who could like, protect their values. Oops. Whereas I think liberals are more willing to vote for people based on their policies. Like I remember there's like a small movement for like RFK Jr. for example, in the 2024 elections. So that is one thing. And when you're right wing, I feel like right wing is much more people who, I mean, obviously people who are historically voting for Republicans anyway, but are also kind of radicalized. You know, as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think our generation is very radicalized. I think, for example, most obviously, you know, young white men are turning to conservatism, because they feel as though they don't agree with leftist or right wing policy per se, but more because they're just like more because they're like they just feel more insecure by leftist ideas, like you know, like Mason with the Christian cross and the fishing rod emoji. You know, they're just not represented. That's annoying. They're not represented by media, leftist media. And as a consequence, that's just the sole reason why they would vote for, you know, Donald Trump. I think that's a shame. Because it also speaks to how, I think the left has kind of been radicalized. Where they're so, like I was saying before, prone to ostracizing people that just by default they will ostracize people who are white, who are straight men, who are Christian, and that's kind of the reason why uh, young straight white men, in particular, are turning to that path of conservatism. As a whole, though, I mean, I feel like just everyone becomes more liberal over time. But I think oh my god, 1,040 coins? That's crazy. Wait, the chance for new is only 20% if you do 200? Wait, I've been like wasting my money this whole time. Chance for new 10%. Oh my god. This is terrible. What a waste of money. Oh, nice. I think that means China's complete now. Yep. So yeah, I feel like people just like society just become more liberal over time, especially for the West. But then I feel like the direction that what leftism is taking in America has kind of resulted in, I guess, it's a negative feedback loop. I don't know. I think that makes sense. I can kind of see it. I mean, if you get, I think people are being more radicalized. Men, especially, are being more radicalized towards uh, being right wingers as a whole, in general, not just in America. Because I think it must do with nationalism, to be honest. Like, for example, in Europe with the migrant issue. That is definitely radicalized, but it's probably even worse in America. The issue of migrants, the issue of migrants in Europe, like the UK, for example, is so pressing to radicalizing young men. It's crazy. And it's just like a horrent rise in just blatant racism and xenophobia, which I mean, for them may be justified in a lot of instances. I think it's irrational, maybe, but not totally. Like, you can see, I can see why. Also propaganda, of course. Um, so yeah, I'm curious to see. Like, there was just like that referendum in France, I think, to put a ban on immigration for 3 years. I don't think that's getting passed, but yeah. Like, that is an issue that policymakers have to start looking into. Not necessarily because they agree with it, but because it's something that young men are being radicalized for and into doing. Um, what? Oh, what just happened? Oops. Yeah. Oh, I've unlocked every hidden character now from the boxes. I have them all now. So, I think there's some justification for radicalism in Europe. As a whole, no. I mean, I'm Muslim myself, and, whatever. I think it's mostly propaganda, to be honest. And I think Muslim refugees are being pinned on the same way um, African Americans kind of get harped on in today's modern climate. And how they also become kind of victims of those radicalized young white conservatives that we're seeing. There are a lot of parallels, I will say. That's interesting. Damn it. Ah, 609. Lil Young Longo. No, no. Liu Yong. No, Liu. I don't know. Whatever. Okay, I'll see you guys later.